Who wants to start?
I'll start.
Okay.
So I'm Dawn Breeze, and I'm a G1 and in the Vermont campus. So, was there something else to add to that, or that was it?
What kind of an artist are you, Dawn?
Well, of course, I'm an interdisciplinary artist, first and foremost. But I work in various types of work. So I have some socially engaged projects. I also work in conceptual studio practice, and I also have a teaching practice.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go next if we're going in the circle. Oh, I don't know what the circle looks like.
Yeah, sure.
I was next in my circle.
Yeah.
I am Amy Fletcher, and I'm a G1 with Dawn in Vermont, and I am a musical theater person, and I teach and direct and choreograph and perform, and now since I've been at Goddard, I call myself a pop-up community organizer. In that each production I do, I'm now being conscious of what sort of community I am creating and taking those kids or adults or students along with me to my different jobs. I have many different jobs and many different productions, so I'm trying to cross-pollinate my students and my other performers and
I've already
I'll
introduced myself, so yeah, go ahead.
Oh, did I lose you guys?
No.
Nope.
No, we can hear you. We can see you.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
My name is Hannah Pearl Walcott, and I have 3 practices, I think. The study of plant medicine, herbalism, visual art, in particular collage, and the intersection of the 2 of them, which I'm really considering a 3rd practice. And I'm a G2 in Port Townsend with the lovely Jupong and the lovely Kayeri.
This is Kayeri, and I'm really happy to be here this morning with all of you. It'll be an interesting conversation about practice. I'm a G3, and I'm on my phone, so I don't know if you
I'm sorry, I accidentally just muted everybody. Carrie, I don't know if you heard that, but I accidentally clicked the button that muted everybody, so I think we might have missed the last minute of what you said.
yes.
Oh, I think we lost Carrie.
Yep.
Or did, okay, wait. Carrie?
There she is.
Are you there, Carrie? Okay.
Oh no.
So Carrie, I'm hoping that you can hear me say that I accidentally muted everybody and then unmuted everybody. And so we lost a little bit of what you said.
Maybe she's hanging up and calling back.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of launch into the this session. And I hear I feel wind, so I hope I don't sound too windy.
It's okay.
It's okay? All right. So this group study, as you know, is sort of structured around each of the different degree criteria. And so this session is dedicated to the first degree criteria, which is about personal practice. And as you can see on the website, I was going to share this, but I don't know if I need to. I think you've all had a chance to look at the website. We put the text of the degree criteria on the page that's marked with, you know, the session we're in. So this one, cycle 1 practice, talks about articulating and demonstrating personal practice and evidence of sustained inquiry. So to me, this degree criteria has a lot to do with questions of who you are as an artist. So when Carrie, you know, when we were introducing ourselves and Carrie asked Dawn, what kind of artist are you? I think that's a question that is always alive for us in the MFA in interdisciplinary arts. And, you know, what kind of artist we are evolves and changes as, you know, as you grow as an artist and as things happen in your life, as different things become more important. And, you know, for me, I have become increasingly concerned about climate change and really see it as I mean, it's a species issue. You know, we're talking about we may be destroying ourselves as a species and like within the next 40 years. And so for me, all my work is related to those questions, is committed to what can we do about climate change. So I'm starting to think of myself, of my personal practice in those terms, you know, like maybe I need to start calling myself a climate justice artist or a climate advocate, or, you know, climate justice artivist is a word that I heard recently that I like, you know, that combines art and activism. So, you know, even as far along as I am in my practice, I'm always, it's lifelong learning, you know, I'm always finding new ways to connect with what I think of as my personal practice. So the readings and resources on this page all relate to that, those questions. And I'll just say the G1s found out about this group study fairly recently. I didn't do a workshop at that residency, so they're jumping on, not having done the you know, so-called assignments. And one of the assignments is writing an artist statement. So at some point, I would really like to see everybody post their artist statements. But I see on the website that we have one from Carrie and, oh, actually, Amy, you posted one.
I just wrote a little paragraph saying who I was,
Okay.
so that there was some frame of reference.
Okay.
I mean, basically, my artist statement says, never put a tap dancer in point shoot.
Hi.
Great.
Also, Jupong, I have a current artist statement that I'm okay with, and I also just wrote for Peter Hawking's group an interdisciplinary statement.
Right.
That just this week, so I could put those up.
Yeah, that's great. That would be great. Yeah. Let's take a look
All right,
at
let me find out where that website is again.
Okay.
And Jupong, mine is in the work, will be up.
Okay. Yeah, and I see
in
that.
In the meantime, I just made sure that I read all the articles and commented, and
Right. Great.
I wanted to make sure I was on there, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I got into all the reading.
Right. Excellent. I'm just going to check the window again for Carrie. Okay, I see. Carrie, are you back with us? We can see you, but we can't hear you. I mean, I can see that you're on the call, but we're not able to hear you, just so you know. So maybe a good way to start this session is for just to I mean, we can either talk about Hannah. You could talk Hannah Pearl. I keep dropping the Pearl. Does that bother you when people just call you Hannah? No,
not at all.
Okay.
Because we're already connected, you know.
Yeah. So we could, if you'd like to talk about some of the readings and pick up on this discussion that was started on the website, we could do that. We could also why don't we do that, and then maybe come back to um, our personal practices and going deeper with that.
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
Are we all looking at the website at the same time? Should I pull it up?
I could pull it up if you'd like and share it.
Okay, and
Just
then some prompts.
yeah. In fact, I think I'll do that because here, because wait, let me just look 1 second here. When we record the meetings, it shows, the screen that's being shared. So I'm going to now show my screen. Are you seeing my screen now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
let's see. We were going to go down to let's look at the prompt first. So it was read 2 pieces from the resource list and post a short reflection on the pieces and how you relate your art practice with the resource. And also find one other artist whose work helps you further your understanding of the degree criteria. Post reflections below. Okay, so okay, and Dawn just did that, but we're going to go here to Hannah's, right?
Right, and then two things. So the first was to write the artist statement, and there were other links above, further up on the page, of examples of artist statements and examples of how to write artist statements, which I personally found really helpful. I don't know. Did you gather those, Jupong?
A few of them I gathered. I can't remember now this video who put that on there. It was either me or Kayeri.
Kayeri, yeah. There's some great ladies. There's some great.
I looked at a couple of those, and that was very helpful. I'm new to the artist statement. It's not a usual thing in theater, really. So
yeah,
it was very helpful.
Good. That's awesome. And for me personally, my challenge, I wrote this down in the comments, but my challenge as an artist is really to articulate my art. You know? And what I find is that the challenge is actually not, I take that back. My challenge is not actually in the articulation. It's in the sitting down and doing it. The fear of being able to articulate. Really, that's really what it is. But then once I sit down and begin to sort out my thoughts, I realize that I have a strong voice when I talk about my, So it was just it was helpful to. I didn't realize that about myself until I started looking at these links. I really like the top one, hyperallergic. The author was talking about how. I'm trying to remember exact words. Oh, she's going to it.
Yes, I am.
How fancy.
It's so. There's something down here that struck me. Keep going down.
About the categories?
Yeah.
Or keep going?
I think keep going. Yep.
Okay. The arty robot is hilarious, isn't it?
I like that too.
Oh, here we go. I challenge artists to stop looking outside for language and to start digging on the inside for what they do, why they do what they do. No one else knows what gets you up in the morning and makes you finish a painting on the way to your day job, or what problems you're trying to solve in the world by depicting characters a certain way, or why you found that imagery compelling. I love that. Just because I get intimidated by the thought of quote unquote intellectualizing an art practice, that, and what I'm learning in this process is that I don't have to be scared of that word, intellectual. Intellectual doesn't have to mean strictly cerebral, you know.
Mm-hmm.
There can be intelligence of the heart
Mm-hmm.
and not the brain. There can be intelligence of the body. And when I think of it that way, it's helpful.
That's great.
Hannah, I have a question for you, because when you're talking about that, are you talking about language?
Yeah.
Or so when you're talking about intelligences and then being intimidated, are you more specifically referencing like the language of academia?
Yeah.
Okay.
And being afraid of that.
Okay.
Thinking that I'm not a part of that somehow.
Okay.
That I'm not legit. You know, it's like, it's a personal thing, but I'm just sharing it.
Yeah,
Well,
no, I just
I'm on the other side of the fence where I don't feel legit in the artist side. So I could write about it, and that would be fine for me. But I don't feel like it's ever enough on the other side, right? Like not arty enough or artistic enough or
Right.
whatever that is. So it's funny because you have the opposite.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
That's really interesting, and I just wanted to jump in and say, since we're on this page, to look at the very short artist statement here. I take photos of things that I find interesting. Often things are dark and strange to me. I am interested in the subject of mortality. I hope to show myself my feelings. I feel like the statement is being next to this photograph. This is by Jesse Kotler, photographer Jesse Kotler. These words next to that photograph is just so powerful, and they're such simple words, but that word mortality, and those words, things are often dark and strange, says a lot about what's appealing to him, and in answer to that question, what gets you up in the morning, and then ending with the hope of showing myself, in a world where it's often dangerous to be vulnerable, and especially as a man, to show your feelings. So I think that's just in response to what you were saying, Hannah Pearl, about being afraid of the intellectual, or being seen as intellectually valid.
Right.
I think that we can start with just allowing ourselves to dig deep into these big words like mortality. If you really open yourself up to the idea of mortality, that we're all going to die,
Right.
I mean, it can be cliche, but not if you really go into the fears and the fears and the anxiety about death.
Right. There's nothing light about that.
Yeah.
I was going to I'm working on a website for one of my ongoing and big projects. And anyways, I've been working on it for a couple of years, so I've had different types of writing about it. And recently the web designer asked me to rewrite the copy, the real initial stuff. And she gave me the exercise of writing it to the audience of a 13-year-old. And she was like, tell me, explain it to me as if I'm a 13-year-old, because she was like, it's the writing. She's like, it's not engaging enough because I don't understand it. I am not invited into that. And so the exercise proved really valuable to me, because it was interesting to say the same things in a whole nother way, and then to reread them kind of next to each other and sort of coalesce the two. And so I sometimes think it's also an interesting exercise to change the audience and practice explaining the same thing and see what happens. And similarly, in this conference I was at this weekend, we were talking a lot about language and audience and such. And one girl had a really great idea, great tool she was using, which was that she verbalized her stuff and recorded it in audio, and then re-listened to that, and then wrote, because she realized that the way she spoke was very different than the way she wrote, and that she was able to connect much clearer in verbal language. And I don't know if that's always the same for everyone, but again, it was an interesting idea of changing the way we do something to see where it could be maybe beneficial.
I do that. I record myself because, as you all know, I'm a talker. Hannah probably knows already. And so I do that because if I sit down with a piece of paper, nothing comes out. But if I call Dawn on the phone, I can talk to her for an hour about it. So I do that oftentimes in my car. I'm sure people think I'm crazy, but I talk to myself and then I listen to it and write it. And I don't necessarily write what I wrote, but that's how it comes back around into write it.
I love that. I've never done that before, really, and you ladies have just given me a great idea.
Oh, good.
I'm gonna try it.
Cool.
So I just was chatting with Carrie and saw that I somehow had muted her again, but she's now unmuted. Do you have something you want to add, Carrie?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. The thing that I was thinking about that I resonated with Hannah Pearl about, there is a language of academia that is somewhat expected, that you come up to the bar, if you will, of the language of academia. But if we go to a place of thinking about that as also a mask, also a type of, here's how I keep you at bay so that you don't see the real me, then, if you put the real me out there, so to me, part of the task of being an artist is, can I get more and more honest about who I am and what I'm doing and what I'm working on and why? And that sometimes goes directly in the face of academia's need to be intellectual or intellectualized. So I think we have to be really careful as artists about not falling into that trap, because it can hamper our art making, and it can hamper our ability to know who we are on an ongoing basis. So, part of bringing this back to the conversation about audiences is one of the things that I'm finding difficult right now in my practice is I'm always thinking about an audience. And it's going to be impressive to so-and-so or so-and-so or so-and-so. How is this going to take it? Group of people going to take that? And am I going to be acceptable or not acceptable? And who's going to throw me out of their club? And I think that we need to be, if I'm going to make good art, sort of the bottom line of being able to make really great art is to be connected to the inner self honestly, and to be able to convey that without the fear, or to go through the fear and the terror of that honestly. And so I just wanted to bring that up and say, just remember that the intellectualization of the academy is a mask.
That's great.
Well, I actually would argue with that, because I definitely agree with you that it can be. I wouldn't use the language to say it is, because I think that language is a material similar to painting is, or similar to other things, and that when we use language, we use it in an artful way for expression. And so everything is code, and I guess maybe I'm not articulating it quite as well as I want to, but okay, never mind. I just want to leave it at that for now.
Well, I think I agree with you that everything's code, and I think that's an excellent thing to bring up. And it's an excellent code as some type of code that that we're codifying that to express an inner feeling. But I've worked in the academy for 30 years as a career, and I know that there's lots of places where you just can't be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I really, I think this is, I don't want to, I don't want to say what I'm saying in terms of agreeing or disagreeing, because I think this is a great conversation. And I love the way that Carrie, the way that you talked about how academic language can become a mask. And
hi, this is Charlie Lasseter from Lakewood, New Jersey. Video Lab is supported by the
Okay, that's Dawn's. Okay.
I have no idea. I've got to get off. I have no idea what's going on.
I'm gonna just mute you. Okay. So so what I was saying, it was so funny. What I was saying was I love that idea of, thinking about the academic language as a mask, and an artistic process as an unmasking process. That we have to get. It's all about facing those fears and cracking open the mask. And that's a terrifying process. But if we allow ourselves to go there, to get past considerations of what other, at the same time, we need to care about what other people, see in our work, and we need to care about audience. But there's a lot of inner work that needs to be done as artists before the work is ready for an audience, I think.
Well, it's interesting because going back and forth across the line of what your audience needs and what your art needs, right?
Yeah.
And so I face that every minute, because I do feel that my practice is in helping people be able to feel part of a group, be able to express themselves, be able to, within the confines of somebody else's art, right? So Rogers and Hart, or Leonard Bernstein or whatever. So I'm constantly going back and forth across that line of what does the audience need from this, and what do the students need.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when people go into acting, they think about putting on the mask, and I'm constantly saying to the students and myself when performing that the only thing that I have to offer that's different from everybody else is myself.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the masking and unmasking and the audience
Mm-hmm.
that I'm constantly in.
Yeah. I just put on the screen a book called Art and Fear: Observations on the Perils and Rewards of Art Making, which is a little slim little book. There's several of these slim little books that I really love. Slim but packed. It's by Bales and Ted Orland, David Bales, and it's a really wonderful little book that I go back to periodically. I haven't read it for a while now, so I'm sort of feeling like with this conversation I need to go back and look at it again. So I thought I'd share that.
Yeah.
Cool.
I have read this book a couple of times, and I agree. It feels like it's time to go back and look at it again. Jupong.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was thinking about this conversation in general is that it seems like facing fear is part of an artist's practice on an ongoing basis.
Yes.
And it's facing fear is it's in multiple things, in multiple ways, in multiple dimensions, in multiple amounts, and it's like it's part of just this ongoing practice that I'm coming to accept is you will look at your fears
Mm-hmm.
over and over and over again.
Right. Yeah.
And even, you'll get some like all taken care of and you'll think, okay, that's clean and tidy. We're on our way. And then bam, there's another one.
Yep.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
It comes back when you least expect it.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And Kayeri, I want to also say I was really resonating with what you were saying about the mask of academia at times, and I think that it ties into that of the mask of over intellectualizing something can be a direct way to avoid facing your fear, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
If you're over conceptualizing something, you're not actually living below your cerebral realm, so you don't even give yourself a chance to feel it.
Yeah.
To feel what it feels like to be afraid.
My youngest son is in a regular MFA program at University of Kansas, and he says that he'll get into these large critiques with all these people who have their pieces up on the wall, and we all remember doing that. But he'll say, like, he'll just call bullshit on people and say, you're just talking, you're talking, and what you're doing is you're trying to be impressive to the teacher, and it's like, tell us what you really feel. So I think, there's a strong part of academia of like, what can I get by with?
Well, yeah, it's safe. It's very safe for some people to live in that place and feel a sense of accomplishment by creating confusion as well. I have found, and I oftentimes talk about the Emperor's New Clothes, the fable, The Emperor's New Clothes. You guys know that one, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I tell my son that one a lot. He's 7, so. But I feel like that happens a lot in my daily workings. That it's the Emperor's New Clothes. And I just gotta stop.
So I put on the screen Jason Taylor's website, and actually this is different than what his website used to be. This is just, it looks like is it a Tumblr account, or it's just images of his work just rolling through? It's just incredible.
We can click the different links there.
Oh, okay.
There's the prompts up on.
Yeah, I see. Okay. Well, I'm happy to just look at these images.
They're amazing.
Yeah. Do you want to say something about this work, Hannah Pearl, and how it relates to your practice?
Sure. Amy, since we're just meeting, I'll tell you that what I've been doing at Goddard so far is a series of plant medicine goddesses.
Ooh.
A way to tie in both of my practices of plant medicine and visual art. That's the third practice I was talking about. So,
right.
Combination. And last semester, I ended with seaweed, with the study of seaweed after doing turmeric and rose. And I was so enthralled with the study of seaweed that I decided to continue and to dedicate this whole semester to the study of seaweed and to ocean life, and really become engaged in ocean advocacy as a part of my art, giving a voice to the parts of the ocean that can't speak up for themselves in the face of
amazing.
Human destruction. So that's going to be part of my art statement. That sentence.
Yeah, write it down. It was recorded.
Okay, great. So Jupong and I talked a bunch last residency, and Jupong was the one that pointed me towards this amazing artist. So I want to give Jupong her props. And I'm just in love with his work. I'm really in love with his work. I feel I wrote it in a comment on the Arts and Praxis website that I feel like it's a gift. I feel like he's giving a gift to the ocean. he's giving a gift to the ocean while simultaneously, you know, shedding light on the ocean. So there's a double action going on, in my opinion.
It's phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
Who do you think is the audience for this work?
hmm I actually think it spans. I think the fish,
Mm-hmm.
the algae,
Mm-hmm.
the life, the deep life in the ocean is the audience.
Mm-hmm.
The ocean itself, the water itself.
Mm-hmm.
And my hope is as many human beings as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely, recognize that he's widely known in the art world, which is amazing. And I'm hoping that he inspires a lot of artists that have a name for themselves to have a form of activism in their work, to have an element of activism in their work, which I feel like he just naturally does. So that's my hope. I don't know if it's true, but I mean, I'm inspired as an artist. Looking at him, I'm inspired because it's so generous, his work. And I feel like a lot of, like what we were talking about, academia, and in my opinion, I mean, I grew up in Chelsea in New York with all the galleries and all the things, and most of those galleries I'm not even interested at all in, a lot of them, because I feel like I walk in there and I don't know, is this for me to look at, right? Like, that's my question. My question is, why are you showing this to me?
I believe he
Dawn
originally.
is trying to get back on. I don't know if you can't get back on. I don't know if you have to accept her or anything, but
No,
she
I don't
said
think
it's not.
so. I mean, I can
Okay.
try to invite her.
Yeah, now she's trying to call in now. Too.
Okay.
Is Kaeri still here?
Yes, I am. What I wanted to say about this incredible artist, and I was so happy I've seen his work before, but I was really happy to be able to go through his complete website. So I'm always an advocate for the natural world, and my advocacy, or my my political activism, I made a decision quite a while ago that it would be for the earth. And so people have asked me to do things, different kinds of rights, and I've said no. I'm spending all my time, and where it seems to be getting closer and closer, or more and more, is our food situation. But when I look at his work and I see the algae cover it and the starfish, and the fish going by, what it does for me is there's two big things it does for me. The first one is I love, and this is one of the reasons I love Hannah Pearl's work, is I love the buildup of textures. So over time, the algae and the plants and the starfish and the crustaceans, they all interact with each other to make these incredibly beautiful, I don't know what you would call it, textures. And I'm so in love with textures. And so it's so wonderful for me to see the earth making textures on his artwork. I think actually enhances his artwork a great deal. Like he's actually interacting with the natural processes of the earth to enhance his work more over time.
Yeah.
So that I find that really profound.
Yeah. I totally. Oh, sorry. Are you done, Kaeri?
I've got one more point.
Okay.
The second thing that I love about his work so much is that it calls attention to, look, you actually are a part of the earth. You as a human being are part of the earth, and so you're not going to get out of it. You're not going to get out of the earth. You can pretend to be not subjected to the Earth's processes, but actually you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love those comments, Carrie. Yeah. And it's like he's willing as an artist to relinquish his control of the outcome.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because he doesn't know how the algae is going to form on the, like, he didn't plan that. So there's this way in which he's sort of taking his artist ego and sort of hanging it up to dry a little. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to riff on, is that to me this work really is a true collaboration with other species. You know, the work is not just these statues down there. And I believe what I started to say was that I believe he started this work with the intention of trying to restore the coral reefs, which are, you know, being destroyed by ocean acidification and, you know, the rising temperatures of the ocean and all this. And he constructed these statues so that they could be, you know, generative surfaces for the coral to grow on. So it, to me, that, you know, when I look at these, a lot of stuff happens. I think about how these statues are, I mean, normally we think of statues as being very permanent and, you know, like public sculptures are out in our environment for many years, decades, and they seem very permanent. But his statues, because they're in the ocean, and you know, he's photographed them at a point where a lot has happened to them. It just really highlights how impermanent they are, you know, and how time is the time that we're on the planet Earth as who we are, as, you know, this human being is so short. It's such a blip of time. So all that stuff we're talking about, mortality, you know, that really comes up here, where, you know, it some of these pieces, I think, wow, it's not going to be too long before they're entirely covered with other species and maybe not even recognizable as human anymore. And to me,
Yeah.
that's actually a hopeful feeling, you know, that that maybe that humans aren't gonna destroy the Earth before it's able to, you know, come back and rebalance the,
Reclaim.
yeah.
Regenerate.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I wanted to say was about the part of the reason I asked the question about audience is to see these pieces in the flesh. You have to have like some serious diving equipment, and, you know, so most of what we're looking at, most people will see this work through photographic representation, right? So so I think about that audience, that we are audiences for that, for the representation of these actual pieces, and the photographs capture just a moment in this process of, you know, these pieces being co-created with these other species. And then the other thing I think about is, you know, it often when I look at these works, I think about the very, very, that it could be very possible that these pieces exist long after the human species is no longer actually alive.
Wow.
And that can also be hopeful, actually.
One of the things that the Haudenosaunee say, you know, it's like one of their main little mantras, is that the Earth bats last. And they also say one dish, one spoon. And so if you dirty the spoon or the dish, you'll get to eat it yourself. And so it's like I had a very, I used to live in somewhat terror of all of the pollution and all of the climate change and all that, and I don't anymore. And the reason that I don't is because I watched a show about the wolves in the no population zone around the big radioactive area. I think Chernobyl, around Chernobyl, and there's like two main packs of wolves that live there, and there's buffalo, and there's all kinds of animals that have taken over that entire area. And that you still have to put on full suits to go in there, but so the wolves will have, say, 7 babies, and 1 will die from radiation overdose, but 6 will live. And so what when I watched that show, it made me feel like, okay, the Earth really does fat last. She figures stuff out. And the other thing that I had thought about, there's this giant volcano, a mega volcano underneath Yellowstone. If that thing goes off, the whole world starts over. And so I feel like she started over in the past. She has the ability to start over at any time. And so I stopped being worried about her. Not to say that I shouldn't do advocacy. I do want to do advocacy.
Right.
I do want to do, but it's like she ultimately can change it up at any moment.
Right. And Kayeri, just to piggyback on, like, advocacy and worry, right? Those are 2 separate things, right?
Yes.
Like,
that's great.
It reminds me of the Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron.
Yes.
Says worry is not a good fertilizer. Which I like, because it's like, you either do something about it or you don't. But worrying, right? That's like, where's that going to get us?
It goes nowhere.
That's beautiful.
Right.
A person. Yeah, that's good. That's good. And so I think that's part of the facing your fears. That's part of okay, if I'm going to do this work, if I'm really going to be out there, if I'm going to say my truth, if I'm going to advocate, if I'm going to do activism and use my art to do activism, then I don't have time for worry,
Right.
But also I can't get bogged down in when other people don't pay attention. I can't. It's like I'll lose steam, I'll lose energy, I'll lose power to be able to do what I need to do.
I miss like some of the context via like my computer being hijacked by a very weird podcast. I don't know what happened. But I was just listening to you guys and just sort of thinking about one of the things that's come up for me thinking about art in general in this last semester too is this idea of kinetic or aesthetic art and also this idea of what is, because when I first went to Goddard I was like, excuse me, is this like a school for arts or a school for activism? I was like, what's going on here? And then that question, I really have been sitting with that question, just asking myself, what's the difference? Like, when did we make a divide, actually, between it? And then that makes me think about kinetic art, which is, this idea of wanting something to have an effect or cause change. And I don't know, like, I'm really curious about that in my own work and wondering about, how much control do I want to think that I have or want, or, when we're thinking about activism, we're really looking for outcomes, and looking towards making a change in something specific. And I just wonder what you guys think about that as far as, I don't know, just as artists,
Mhm.
I think that sometimes, you get far away from what your core motivation to make art is by there's a balance, right, between, like Jupong was saying, the artivism.
Mm-hmm.
I find for me that the pendulum swings a lot in terms of losing myself in the activism or losing myself in the art, because in my mind there is a differentiation in terms of the impetus for what's making me be creative, whether it's coming from myself or coming from the outside in, almost with an objective. It changes the way I do things, for lack of a better description.
Yeah, were you going to say something, Hannah Pearl?
Please,
Okay.
go ahead.
I have to walk around because it's getting chilly. So, sorry for the motion.
We're with you, girl.
Hi.
Not saying hi.
This is Carrie.
Yes. Yes, barely.
Okay. So can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay. I really like that question, and I think it's a really valid question, and I think it's definitely part of a question that has to be asked to be able to organize one's actions around whatever activism one's going to do. And what I've come up with for myself is that I've had my years of being on the Capitol steps. I've written tons and tons of letters to senators and representatives, and I've done all that kind of stuff. But what it feels to me like I need to do now is that the actual making of the work creates me as a being. Like I go to a higher level of being as I'm making the work, and that feels like that is actually helping the earth the most.
Yeah, I resonate with that. Which is, it's when you're actually aligned with your life, with the nature of yourself. I think you're most aligned with the power of the earth. Therefore, you're helping things just by nature of being who you are.
Yeah, and I think that it's we're taught to not be aligned with ourselves, and so it's a huge act of courage, and it's a huge it's like swimming through the ocean trying to get to that place. It's like you have to keep uncovering and uncovering to be able to say, okay, here I am, earth, and here I am, sky, and here I am, water, and I will work with you. I will be aligned with you. And I think the more people that do that, part of the reason that I love Goddard is I'm watching people work through that process.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to what Dawn was saying about the separation between activism and art. And I really appreciate, on the one hand, asking the question, why is there a difference? And on the other hand, I also can definitely think of forms of activism that are not artistic, and that's forms of activism, like the more protest-oriented activism of my youth, I have moved away from, because I think that it's that form of activism it's very targeted towards very particular solutions and strategies, and I think that it's important that those forms of activism are being exercised. At the same time, I think that now is the time for a really different kind of activism. And maybe it shouldn't even be called activism anymore. I just heard a talk by a guy who was talking about, he was talking about conservation and sustainable development. And on an international level, he said that he's seeing a real paradigm shift from the kind of top-down policy, expecting that international global organizations like the United Nations they're gonna be, able to exert some policy from above, and that there's a real shift as we see how ineffective the UN has been in actually getting policy, climate change policy, to be respected and to actually, manifest in the world. And so the shift that he's seeing is, and I'm seeing this everywhere, is that, there's much more of a paradigm of grassroots, smaller, building from the bottom, starting with the smaller scale connections in smaller communities. And I think we're talking about, as artists, even going to the very kind of the very root of who we are, and starting the thinking about change and transformation and the change we want to see in the world, starting from that root place, I guess literally where we're rooted in the earth.
Yeah, I think that's very accurate. One of the wake-up calls that I had, Jupong, around that was that when you watch a country practice genocide, who they go after first, most often, before they actually start to just go into communities and kill people, is they go in and capture the artists and the intellectuals.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that they're doing that is to get the free thinkers out of the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the other thing that happens is that children are, taken away and re-acculturated, right?
Re-educated.
Yeah, re-educated. Yeah.
And the education is based in do not think freely.
Right.
Do not be attached to the earth.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that when any person makes a decision, I will realign myself with the earth, I will become who I really am, I will think what I really think, that is an act of supreme activism. That is, it's like you can't take that away from anybody once they've got there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm afraid I'm going to have to leave pretty soon, or leave the call. And I'm pretty sure that when I leave the call, it's going to close the whole thing down. I'm not absolutely positive, but but I think that might be the case, unless I can, give the presenter controls over to someone else.
Actually, I don't think you can. I think what you're called is you're like the startup person.
I'm the organizer.
Yeah, and so a presenter is only attached to an organizer.
Right. Okay. So
Well,
in the future,
for an hour and a half anyway, right? I mean, I think we're almost.
Yeah, I think we could probably wrap up. For next time, I think I'll try to. I think there is a way that I can add organizers. So for the next one, I'll try to do that. I'll try to add, one or two of you to be co-organizers, so that in case something happens, I can, someone else can start the call and record. But maybe we could just do a round of closing thoughts and end the day.
Okay.
Well, I'm happy to be connected with other people, and looking forward to continuing the discussion about artist statements and the practicalities of that, maybe like through the discussion board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
I feel similarly. I'm happy to be connected. I find that the low residency model for me is challenging in all the ways that I actually need to be challenged, which is that I'm quite a wild horse, and I like to run free, and discipline is a constant. I'm in constant relationship to my understanding of discipline, and I feel like this Arts and Praxis learning group gives me a touchstone, gives me some ground that's really helpful for me to create structure in my life as an artist. So I'm excited to be involved.
Yeah, I feel this similarly. It was nice to connect to everyone who's walking on this path. And I'm always interested in discourse around these ideas of language. I think that's something that I am finding more and more and more and more interest in, actually, because one of the interests I do have as an artist is communications. And I see language, as I earlier said, like I like this and I find too, as an artist, it's very difficult to articulate things that are not always objectifiable. And so I'd love to keep talking about the artist statement and how do we just.
So Dawn, your signal seems to be going in and out. I don't know if it's for everybody else, but your image is frozen and I can't hear. Is everybody frozen?
That's why I want to keep doing this.
Great. Yay!
Okay. Should we say
Nice
bye?
to meet you, ladies.
Bye. Are we leaving now?
All right. Yeah, well, it's going to turn us off in a minute.
No, hi everybody.
It said online that it was
I'm back. I walked away from the internet connection, but I'm back now and just in time to say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
I'm back.
Okay.
Bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye, Carrie.
Bye.